Good morning, everyone. I said good morning. Am I audible? Yeah, good morning, guys. So I hope you had time yesterday to revise all the things, including the redirect part. And as promised, of course, we'll be revising all of that and checking your head. But since the number is very less, it is actually, uh, can you just wake up your friends? Because the first thing I want to show you is creating Spring Boot project to download the dependencies. And if they miss out on that, then how will they work the whole day is beyond me. So waiting means I'm revising, I'm starting the revision. I'm waiting for at the most 5 minutes. And after that, I'm going to tell you the steps for creating your first Spring Boot project. So please, ma'am, sir, whoever is on the call, tell students to join as fast as possible. Okay, I'm waiting for 5 minutes in the revision part. So because otherwise what will happen is they'll miss the steps and then the whole day. Then again, I'll have to repeat it sometime. But that I will repeat definitely, but in the lab directly. And the point is, guys, to rush you in this is it is going to take you some time to download those dependency jars. So, I was planning it that we will start with the download and then we'll do the revision. So let me reverse thing first. I'll start with the revision and then start it. In another 5 minutes, I'll start the Spring Boot thing. So open two things right in the first thing, the content management system in one of the tabs and the Spring MVC flow also, because those are the things you will definitely require, you'll definitely need to refer. So what we are going to do is I'll start with the revision and I'm not going to ask you to make any copy because here is the plan. I'll tell you today's plan till everyone joins in. I have given you, we have spent whole of yesterday in Spring MVC plus Hibernate integration. But you must have realized there are so many configuration files, so many configuration steps. And then once you do the configuration, then you start actually coding controller, service, DAO layer beans, repositories and all that. Okay. So the purpose of Spring Boot framework, which is a project on the top of Spring framework itself, is reducing this configuration to zero. Okay. So that is why, and if you see your contents syllabus, they have said only one project Spring MVC without Spring Boot and rest all we are going to do with Spring Boot. Okay, so today's plan is the content management system. I've started with you just 1 or 2 pages or initial part. So we are going to port it to Spring Boot the moment little bit crowd increases. I mean, I'm just waiting for, I told you, another 5 minutes. Okay, so that way. So in the meantime, open your yesterday's project and let's do a proper revision, quick revision. And when I see the number reaching, I will pause in between and give you the instructions for creating Spring Boot. Okay, so that way. So till the time everyone joins us, open day 16 Spring MVC and start answering. Quick question, quick answer. I've already revised it in the lab, but the last part, the redirection part, was done in a hurry. So that part I want to do it in a proper manner. So start. Who is delivering the index page? Is it a Spring or is it a web container? Is it a Spring container or is it a web container? Everyone knows it is a Spring container. How do you know? After a while, just check your web XML and check and tell me, is it containing any welcome file or welcome file list? Answer is no. So we are not giving any instruction to the web container to, what is it? What is the welcome file? So I have just copied in today's sequence whatever we had discussed yesterday. So which is the first request coming to our web application, HTTP some host some port, day 16. Day 16 is like today, day 17, Spring MVC. So do the routing fast and we'll reach the redirection part fast. Okay. So can this be intercepted by your front controller? This request which is ending in day 16? Of course, yes. As long as you don't have a proper any extension, it can be intercepted. So who will, I mean, okay, let's say this properly. So front controller consults whom for request mapping or handler mapping purpose? The name of the bean itself is handler mapping. This is the interface name, this is the class name, and it internally maintains a map. So you tell me, what will be the key and what will be the value? It's a complete recap. What is the key which it will send for the first request? It's a slash as the key. Okay, because we have not given any URL pattern. And what will it return? So for that, I don't even want you to memorize anything. So please open controller package, com app controller. Base package we are given as com.app. So all the Spring Beans which are managed by Spring, which are controller, DAO, and service. Don't ever think that POJOs are managed by Spring. Who is going to manage the POJO lifecycle? Web container, Hibernate, or Spring? Who manages the POJO lifecycle? Transient to persistent, detached, removed. Tell me, pick up one of the options. Is it a Spring container? Is it a Hibernate? Or is it your web container? Of course, Hibernate. So other than POJOs, your controller, DAO, and service are all Spring Beans. That is the Java objects whose lifecycle is managed by Spring container. Got me? Okay. So which is the controller you're going to open? Homepage controller. And when you see this, everyone can understand now, this is the third day almost, that the key is slash, and as a value, what is it going to return? Fully qualified class name of the controller and the method name also. Okay, so come back to this part and you can see what is it will return? Homepage controllers show homepage method. But take a minute. Is this a, what is it called? Singleton or prototype? Lazily loaded or eagerly? Lazy or eager? You know the combination. It is singleton and eager. Means Spring container which has been started by dispatcher servlet, which is loaded on the startup, has already created these beans. Okay, so what your front controller is equal to dispatcher servlet has to do, simply call the method. Okay, so this is how the control reaches our request handling controller, or simply say handler. It is handling your request processing. So this is your handler bean. Now take a look at it and tell me, what is it returning? If you don't have a redirect keyword here in a string, what is it taken as? Is it taken as a forward view name is equal to logical view name, or is it taken as redirect view name? Everyone understands it? That is why, guys, I was preparing you all these days, client pull, server pull, etc. It is taken as a forward view name is equal to logical view name. When I say in the middle of night logical view name, it will be definitely sent to view resolver for translation from what to what? Tell me. Translation from what to what? Logical view name to actual view name. Got it? So now who is returning what to whom? Our handler is returning the logical view name to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet checks, is it a redirect view or a forward view? No redirect prefix. So of course a forward view. Gives it to whom? Gives it to the view resolver bean. View resolver bean simply looks at its prefix and a suffix. So we have already given. WebINF is a particular J2E compliant name. Views is the name I have given, which I said yesterday. You can replace it by JSPs or results or pages or anything. It's your decision. And the suffix we are currently using, we are using currently JSP as a view layer technology. That reminds me, yesterday, guys, I had uploaded somewhere in the night this React this project also. So have you installed it? NPM installed it? Only one yes. Okay, so guys, then what is the point in me uploading the project? See, when I'm taking the efforts, I want you also to take the efforts, okay? So you have a lot of time. Don't worry. You are not lagging behind. Today, whole day we are going to spend in Spring Boot. One more interesting technology you are going to learn. First, I'll take you to JPA. And Sumit, no, it is a tried and tested one. So you'll have to try it better. So has anyone successfully tried it? NPM installed the project? Successfully tried NPM install? Okay, so these guys are supposed to help others. I'm not going to spend time in giving reactives, guys, because as it is difficult for me to complete Java. So taking React also becomes a little hard. Okay, so help each other and get each other's bugs solved. Okay, sorry. So coming back to the point, currently we are using JSP as the view layer technology. Okay, so coming back to the point, once your view resolver bean adds the suffix of .jsp, the control again goes back to this front controller, dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will check, are there any model attributes saved in this return? So tell me, in this case, are there any model attributes we have added so that as a business logic result, it's a yes or no question? Of course not. So there's nothing to really, there's nothing to push in the request scope. So this step is skipped. And what is the default navigation for the MVC controller? Is it a forward or is it a redirect? Server pull or client pull? Everyone knows the answer. It is a server pull forward scenario. I told you long back, polish this, understand this inside out. So it will simply call request.get request dispatcher with her actual view name and forwards the clients to the view layer. So the job of the JSP, see, MVC is all for separation. So the job of JSP is to generate the dynamic response. Okay, so that dynamic response is sent. Control comes back again, all the way back to the front controller. And with that generated response, but front controller cannot write any generated response because it's a forward chain. Only the last page in the chain can generate the response. And that response is finally sent back to the client, finishing, completing first request response loop. Tell me, is everyone clear about the first request response loop? I'm of course going to revise it till redirect, but now I can see 195 is a decent number, better than 150. So now I'm going to give you guys the Spring Boot steps. Those who joined late did not hear me. So here, okay, I'll tell you where I have given you. I've given you 2 days back. Wait a second now. So I think day 15 help or day 16 help. Somewhere I've given you. Oh, so day 16 data, please open. I'll also open with you. Open day 16 data, day 16 help. And can you see Spring Boot there? Okay, so I'm going to explain the concept of a Spring Boot in a maybe 20 minutes or 10 minutes time once we finish the revision. So guys, the plan is we are going to port this existing, whatever tiny part of CMS we have done on the Spring Boot, and we will be completing the rest of it in Spring Boot with the more advanced technologies, database technologies. Everything will be distinct properly. So if you open the Spring Boot, I have given you Spring Boot API docs. It's a jar. So wherever you are collecting all those Java API docs, put it there, and then you can say right click and extract here. Okay. So after, actually I'm going to use 2.6, that is the latest version of Spring Boot, but the 2.4 and 2.6, there's not much of a difference. So start extracting, and once you extract it, you will get a, okay, I'll show you what you'll get. You'll get a normal index.html, and this is what it is. So when you click on index.html, you will get a Spring Boot 2.4.2 API. Extracted the jar. Just right click on it and collect it. First copy paste it, move it to the folder, maintain one folder where you have got starting from core Java, J2E, then whatever, Hibernate, Spring, and now Spring Boot docs. One more, last you are going to get Spring Data JPA. Actually, I don't think I've downloaded. No, we will use it online. But anyway, the point is you do it. Now if you see, I'm going to give you, of course, this is going to be a project technology. So of course, I'll give you a complete description, discussion on that. But what is Spring Boot? Why Spring Boot will be covered little later, maybe in half an hour time. But since it involves lot of dependencies to be downloaded, let me give you the steps. Okay. So if you want to refer to the steps, open from the Spring Boot sequence 1. Okay. So all these things we will discuss later. And somewhere, yeah, look for Control F for steps. Found the steps? What is it we are doing, guys? I'm showing you creation of your first Spring Boot project. And then you yourself tell me, configuring the Spring Hibernate application with Spring Boot is easier or without Spring Boot is easier? I'll just ask you later. So is everyone ready? Can I start? Okay, so you can read this. I will just do it along with you. You have a step guide here anyway. So first, Control Shift W. We'll resume this revision in 5 minutes, whatever. So which is the Explore version? Okay, here onwards, you can change it to the Spring Explorer perspective. I'm saying window, perspective, open perspective, other, and Spring is the default perspective for STS. STS stands for what? Spring Tool Suite. So of course it is going to be the default perspective. Open the Spring perspective. It is not compulsory. You can continue with J2E. Doesn't matter. I'm just going more specific. Keep telling me yes or no. Open perspective is the last thing it should bother you. It is just the way your IDE responds, look and feel. Next one. Now start with me. Drop down list. The first project itself is Spring Starter project. Click on that. This is the easiest way. Okay, sorry, I should have told. You need a steady, good, non-interruptible internet connection, because this is going to start a lot of jars downloading. If it doesn't happen immediately, you have 10 o'clock break, and at that time you do this. Okay, so let me not waste time. This is your logo of Pivotal entering Spring Boot. So don't change anything. So currently, let's make it day-wise. So I'm calling it as day 17, Spring MVC. Of course, it will have Hibernate and everything. Just, okay, you can say this so that later you will remember. If the name, it's day-wise I'm maintaining, you can say Spring MVC Hibernate. Okay. So this is first thing. See which is the project management tool it is using. There are two options. One is Maven, one is Gradle. But you don't have Gradle in your contents. So we are continuing with Maven. So I was preparing you for Maven all these days. I'll give you more readmes and all these little more information about Maven later. Next one. Since we are building it as a MVC-based web application and not a REST API endpoint, tomorrow morning, by this time, we will be developing the backend for the React frontend, which I have already shared. So spend some time in today and keep the React frontend installed. npm install and say npm start. I'll show you sometime in the lab session. It is just an employee list CRUD operation. You told me what I asked you, what ma'am had taken. So very similar thing I'm giving you. So anyway, so here change the packaging to war since it is a web MVC application. By the way, you can also bundle it into jar. First, I'm showing you with a war. Java version, we have already got this. But if you see the list, it supports Java. See, there are 3 stable versions, LTS version. So it supports Java 17 also. So after settling down and after you get the confidence, then after you download Java 17, you can port it to Java 17. But the most stable release I have found, in the recent times is Java 11. So we are continuing with Java 11. Currently, you can't change Java 17. You don't have a JDK 17 here. And all this is same. So group ID, is nothing but the reverse domain name. You know now. Let me not waste time on the things you know. This is your Maven. So Maven based Spring Boot. So let's say example.com. Artifact ID, it gives you same as project name. This version is, it starts with 0.0.1 snapshot. You can change it in the generated pom.xml file and add this as, I mean, let's have a proper description. Spring Boot with Spring MVC and Hibernate based this thing, web application. It is not a REST endpoint. REST endpoint is your API provider, and the front end is going to be API consumer. That we are not doing it today. We are starting from tomorrow onwards. So this is it. Spring Boot with Spring MVC and Hibernate based web application. So it is a monolithic. It is not a full stack application. It is a monolithic application. And since guys, it is asking you which is the package, which is the base package. So we are going to copy. I'm not going to waste your yesterday. So whatever we created, little bit, POJOs and the DAO and the service and the controller are in com.app. So change the package name to com.app. Okay, so these are the things we have changed. So what I'll do is, just a second, I'll hide this floating panel. And I want to take a, screenshot in case anyone requires any latecomers, late risers. So we have so many of them around. So for them. Okay, now. So is everyone this thing here completed this? Can I move on to the next screen? The next screen is very important. So tell me guys, the recently we've been creating for almost past week, all Maven based project. So you did not, you are finding it difficult to find, load and all. But the point is, I had already done the hard work and identified the compatible dependencies. So I'm going to give you literally 20 reasons of why Spring Boot. One of the reason, see it immediately. Do you have to copy my pom.xml from anywhere? Absolutely not. These are all the modules, your Spring Boot, which is the layer above the Spring framework supports. And you just not drag and drop, you just pick and choose, like you do it in your card, right? So let's start telling Spring Boot, this is what we want, and see the Spring Boot magic. So first thing is, I want a web project, right? I mean, we want to create a web MVC. So simply type web here. It will give you what all you want. So choose Spring Web here. See guys, the dependencies, the selected ones are coming here. I'm going extremely slow, so I don't think anyone should lag behind. Those who don't join, I can't help them. Is it clear? So just take a cursor here and read a pop-up help. Build web, including RESTful APIs using Spring MVC. Okay, so today we are doing a standalone project, monolithic web application. Tomorrow we'll be splitting it into front end and a back end. REST APIs, RESTful web application. Spring MVC is going to be the constant, meaning so much time I'm investing on that front controller, handler mapping, and the whole flow, same flow continues. Got me? So it is a step-by-step learning. And read the best news. Hereafter, when you enter Spring Boot, do you have to add the external additional Tomcat container, or is it going to be bundled as the embedded container? Read the pop-up help and tell me. Embedded container or not? Embedded container. So many ready-made things you're going to enjoy, you have no idea. Okay, I mean, of course, those who know Spring Boot have an idea, others. Okay, so Spring Web done. Same thing for RESTful APIs as well as web application, same. Next one, you cannot imagine anything without SQL, without database. So look for type SQL, and you can see so much of a support it gives you. So here, of course, we are doing. So the top of the ladder for our database is something called as Spring Data JPA. So read the pop-up. Persist data in SQL. This is not for NoSQL. For NoSQL, something else. In SQL stores with Java persistence API. If you ever choose, there's a for MongoDB also somewhere. Where's that? Can you see my MongoDB? I think it was NoSQL, under NoSQL, yeah. Apache Cassandra, I can see. But yeah, somewhere they give you. There's one dependency. I'll see if it is not here. I can share later. So the point is, currently we are going to use MySQL, and nothing can happen. Even though when I take you to high-end framework, Spring Data JPA, what is it going to use? A JDBC driver. So have you done the selection? So you have selected Spring Data JPA and MySQL driver. And you can see the selection here. Done so far? Yes or no? Quickly. It's just a checkbox selection. See the amount of effort. And guys, in 2 minutes, okay, not 2 minutes, for you 10 minutes maybe, when it downloads the dependencies, it is going to populate the pom.xml for you. So no more copy pasting dependencies tag and all. Let Spring Boot help you end to end. Okay, so coming back to this, right? So now you just type dev. So when you say dev is for development. So there is an option called as Spring Boot Dev Tools. Read what it brings in. So provides fast application restarts. Guys, we are in the dev stage, development environment, dev environment. We are not into prod or UAT or whatever. So we want live reloading, like your React this. Okay, so anytime you change something, you want the Spring application to reboot. So in short, select this. We want dev tools. And then you have something called as, okay, so tell me, if you recall your POJOs, everyone must have written so many times POJOs, which is that boilerplate code, which has to be written all the time in POJOs. Yeah, under NoSQL MongoDB. Thanks. Yeah, tell me, which is this thing for us? Getters and only getters and setters. The default constructor, all our constructors, getters, setters, toString, sometimes hash code and equals. So if you want to reduce that boilerplate code to 0 and replace it by what? Annotations, you have a Lombok library. So read this. Java annotation library, which helps to reduce boilerplate code. And at which level? It is not only limited to POJO. Anywhere you want getter and setter, anywhere you want to generate this thing, what is it called? No args constructor and all that, default constructor, you can use that. Only thing is, this Lombok library has to be installed. So let me go a little ahead and I'll show you this. Have I added everything? Just let me check, because, I don't want to forget things. So I've got bring in web, this thing, dev tools, Lombok. Yeah, validation. I have forgotten this. So we are going to do the presentation logic validation also. Could I refer? So please check here. I mean, just type valid. And not today, maybe when we enter Spring Boot API, even though you have a front-end validation, it is always considered as best practice to do the back-end validation of the data. So select validation. So there is something called as a Java Bean style validation with Hibernate validators. Bring in that. Got this selection? I'll just take a screenshot. Again, I think everyone has joined by now. But anyway. Oh my God. I said escape by mistake. Anyway, it takes me a minute to bring this. Anyway, it will be a revision for you. Now I'll go faster. So I lost. I said by mistake escape and I lost it. No worries. Day 17 Spring MVC. You just sit back. Don't do it again. Cabinet. All this is fine. You tell me if I make a mistake. App, and the description has to be better. Spring Boot or building what will be web application using tomorrow REST APIs using Spring MVC. Okay, so this is the first screen. jar can be replaced. It is not compulsory, but since it is a web application, I'm just bundling it in a web application archive. That's it. Have I done things? Maven, war, 11 Java. This is example, can be anything, and com.app. And since I said escape, guys, it remembers your selection. So currently, since I've not done this, I just had to do it all over again. Dev tools, SQL, Spring Data JPA, and MySQL driver. And you got, what is it got? We want Lombok. And we want this thing, validation libraries. Okay, so am I dev tools, Lombok, validation, data JPA, and R? Yes. So now go to the next one. So it is asking you, I hope you are understanding, you have to be online. I mean, of course, you are online, you are in Zoom meeting. So it is bringing in all these dependencies. The latest Spring Boot version, stable version, final version, GA, general availability is 2.6.3, and say finish. And if you open this, it is going to download tons of dependencies. For me, I had, of course, I mean, I've been working for the last, a week on the latest project. See, it started long back. It is 2.6.3. So some of the dependencies it is creating. So you tell me, downloading started or not? Okay. So now let this happen properly. Looks like some things are getting started here, but of course, so it will happen much. Some of the downloaded things are getting here. So ignore that and let us focus on the remaining part of the revision. Okay, so even in my case, it is downloading certain dependencies. It keeps changing, guys. Every month or so, or 2 months or so, they keep upgrading Spring Boot. And the moment they upgrade Spring Boot, the related associated dependencies also change. Okay, so let it take its own time. So now, this is the thing I wanted to start parallelly. Okay, so you don't have to keep looking at it, how it is downloading. Okay, so continue with the rest. So we had rest means not restful, not representational state transfer, remaining part I'm saying. Okay, so now where we had reached, we had finished the first request, first response, and index page is given to the client. So now you tell me when, where are we? SRC, main, web app, webanf, use, and index.jsp. So start answering fast because I want to reach there fast. So when client clicks on user login, what will be the URL pattern client will send to the server? Which is the URL pattern it will send us? Everyone gets it? /user/login. Same story I told you already. I must have repeated it 10 times. So it will be more 10 or 100 today, whatever. So coming back to this, can it be intercepted by the front controller? Yes. Front controller gets it to the handler mapping. Handler mapping returns not null. So the moment you hear user/login, which is the controller we have mapped to this particular URL pattern, obvious answer, user controller. So guys, I'm giving you a projective. In your projective also make a sensible naming wise mapping. Otherwise you yourself will not know which controller, which service and all of that. So giving you the proper advice. Proper, what do you say, naming schemes. So open user controller fast and tell me dispatcher servlet will call, or your whatever. Okay, let us skip that step. Dispatcher servlet will call which method? Show form phase, show login form, or process login form. This I have already revised. It's a quick revision. Of course, show login form. Are there any model attributes here? No. We will not ask for it. We don't require it. It's just a showing the form business. And as usual, who is returning what? Your handler is returning a logical view name, forward view name, or a redirect view name. Tell me, what is it? What is it returning? A forward view name is equal to logical view name to dispatcher servlet. Correct? So, sorry. So here, you should follow this. Keep this diagram drawn on a paper, piece of paper or whatever. Or okay, whatever. So it comes back to front controller, gives it to view resolver. View resolver will simply translate it into actual view name. So now tell me, which is the page, which is the where the dynamic response will be generated in the login.jsp. So which is the next page you should open? From web-inf views, user login.jsp. Everyone is clear how the flow is, how the flow reaches login.jsp? Zero questions? Okay, we have not yet come to the TRG pattern. We are not there. We are a little away from it. Okay, so where are we? So now we are under the user specific actions, which is login.jsp. And here, currently this message is all null. We never set any attribute. So EL syntax prints a blank. And this is just a usual form with a very small change. When you don't mention the action, what is the default action? The same URL. Yeah, the same URL. So now this I had just copied. We had anyway discussed this. So when the form is submitted, after the client, submits the form, since the action is, I'm so sorry, action is post and method is default. Sorry, I did reverse. Sorry. Method equal to post and action is missing. The form is submitted to the same URL, but this time with method equal to post. Okay, so now come back. Can it be intercepted by this dispatcher servlet? 100% yes. Sends it to handler mapping. Handler mapping returns not null. So again, the whole business is in user controller. So this time, which method it will call? Show form or process form? Everything is in building, understanding the flow, guys. Okay, so of course, process form. Why you're saying? See this, post mapping. One half of the URL pattern we have already added at the class. So it becomes so easy. All user-centric actions starting with the URL pattern of /user will be written in user controller, which will be one more common action, logout. I'm not doing anything specific for admin logout separately and customer logout. So whatever you can put it in a common, we will be putting it in a user controller. Okay, so coming back, how many dependencies are we asking from the container? Answer is 3. So first 2 are what? Request parameters. So who is doing this job of binding request parameters to your handler method argument? Spring container. And today you will not be impressed because request parameters are also string and my method arguments are also string. So only it is calling request.getParameter. Wait for more. When we introduce, suppose, an integer or double, who will be performing the conversion from string-based request parameters to those primitive types? Spring container. But you will say that was happening with a web container in Java Bean also. So what is great about it? The great thing about it is, even if you pass a date, you remember in the Java Bean, we had to parse the date. Remembering or not remembering? In Java Bean, we were having some published date or something. We had to do the parsing from string to local date. Here, who will perform this conversion? Spring. Of course, there you will have to tell Spring container which is the date time format and all. So everything will be done with the annotation. And later, maybe tomorrow, I'll see how it goes. I'll show you a beautiful technique of form binding, which you know from React. So all this form data can be bound to a single complex object. Complex object means user-defined objects such as employee or user or administrator, whatever. So all of that and much more later. The moment you say model map, it is a map of model attributes. So tell me, if you want to remember the, if you want to keep the request scoped attributes, which one will you use? Model map, because whatever you keep in the model map is automatically added in the request scope. Who will add it in the request scope? Programmer or Spring container? Of course, Spring container. Okay. But soon we are talking about redirection. Soon I'll be talking about remembering the client from, login to logout. So will this model map be sufficient or insufficient? It will be insufficient. Why? Because its scope is current request only. So tell me, which is the minimum scope of attributes you need for in a client pool? Is it a request or is it something else? Session. Session scope is the name of the map, but the scope name is session. Got it? So we will be soon changing sessions to session scope, and then all your whatever information you have put in the earlier request will be visible over time. Okay, so coming back here, who is calling whose method? Controller is calling the service layer method. But are we doing IOC or are we doing the conventional programming? Inversion of control. So instead of user controller, as in a dependent object, creating the dependency in the constructor or something like that, we are going to we are going to rely on the Spring container to make the dependencies available. So you go, let's do it a little faster, otherwise we waste, not waste, but okay, we spend a lot of time. So here, go to the service layer, and in the service layer, we had user service implementation. So tell me, is service layer really doing much, or is it simply calling the down layer method? Is it having some business logic or just calling the down layer method? Simply calling the down layer method. So in that case, can we skip the service layer? Is it optional? Yes, in that case, it is optional. Okay, and I'll give some examples like that. But if you want to maintain it, if you want to create it, what are the class level annotation? Add service to tell the container it contains a business logic, and add transaction so that Spring container supplied Hibernate transaction manager bean can automatically handle the transactions. When I say automatically handle the transaction means what? It will begin the transaction when you call any method from this transactional layer, and when the method returns, it will automatically, it means the Hibernate in background will check, is there any exception or no? So if there is an exception, tell me, will Hibernate perform dirty checking or not? This I had not said yesterday. So I'm asking you every day new thing. Of course, no. In case of exception, it doesn't want to do the insert, update, delete, right? So it won't do the dirty checking. Only if there is no exception, first Hibernate will do the automatic dirty checking, propagate the changes from L1 cache to database, as in sync up the state of the L1 cache to database, DMLs will be fired, and then either it will commit the transaction, or in rollback case, it will discard the transaction. But what is common? Session closing is common. So when you say session close, your persistent context, which is your L1 cache, is all destroyed. Session is what? A thin wrapper around a pulled out connection. So that connection returns to the Apache supplied pool. We are no longer using Hibernate, for giving a connection pool, and then the session is closed. And then the data returns to the caller. But the great thing you saw yesterday was thinning down, complete reduction of boilerplate code in the DAO layer. So open the DAO layer as a quick look at it. Okay, and here you saw, okay, sorry. So what is the class level annotation? @repository. Without it, it won't work as a Spring Bean. Okay, so anytime it is not working, just check the annotations. And what is the dependency of a DAO layer? Everyone knows that. Singleton, immutable, thread safe, heavyweight, session factory. But instead of us writing a Hibernate utils and creating the dependency, who is going to create the dependency for us? Spring container. But Spring container, because we had not migrated to Spring Boot, requires our help. So what does that help? Nothing but a configuration file. So which were the configuration files we had to add? See, your job was easy. I was giving you the ready-made templates. So all you had to do is copy it in proper areas. So database property for all JDBC stuff, database configuration stuff, and the other one was Hibernate persistence XML. where we started with connection pool configuration. That connection pool was injected as the dependency in local session factory bean Spring supplied, which is what will create our session factory and inject it in the DAO layer. And the best part, as I keep saying, the transaction manager all supplied. So we just had, not just, but we had to configure it. So once you configure it, you could inject it directly, the session factory in the DAO layer. And where's the bulk of the code gone? It is done. It gone means it is not gone. Only thing is you are not calling it. Who is invoking all this bulk of the code? Getting the session, beginning the transaction, etc., managing the transaction. Spring supplied Hibernate Transaction Manager Bean, or you can simply say Spring Framework ORM module. Okay, so what is the reduction in code you have? You just have to get the session and create the query, inject the parameters, and get single result. Everyone clear so far? How we reach from controller to this? This is a complete revision. Now I won't revise it further. I mean, the same thing's revision becomes boring. So now this result comes to service returns it to the controller. And here we are. Okay. Now here I will slow down because this was all new. So tell me, in case of successful login, what will okay, it's an interesting question, so I can't resist. Wait a second. Here, listen to the question carefully, and suddenly you'll start understanding a lot more. So listen to the question. Here, see, I'm in the DAO layer. Okay, so in the DAO layer, can you tell me, in case of successful login, what is it DAO layer returning to the service layer? Your choices are, I know a Pojo, so don't give me that. Your choice. I want an adjective: transient, detached, persistent, or what is it called? Removed. Which type of a Pojo it is using? Returning. Answer correct is persistent. Guys, I said the transaction is still open. If you add a add transactional annotation here, then when the transactional annotated class level method returns, then the transaction is closed. So tell me, guys, let me speak in simple English. After this method returns, is the transaction yet over or not yet over? Tell me. Not yet over. Means what? Session is closed or not yet closed? Not yet closed. L1 cache is existing, persistence context available, or already over. Session scope basically still on. Get me? So you're going to build things on this in your projects and all, on this fact, on this understanding. Next one. So what is it we are getting here is definitely, what is it called? Persistent Pojo. How do you confirm what I'm saying is correct or not? Just don't return it. Assign it to user. Change something like password or whatever, and 100% update query will be fired in the database. Because you know for a fact, when you change the state of the persistent Pojo, the changes are reflected in the database if it is a persistent entity. That is how you check whether we are correct or not. Now the next question. What is service layer returning to the controller? Transient, persistent, detached, or removed? Why only so few answers? I want hundreds of answers. Of course, detached Pojo, because at this point, the transaction is over. So coming back to the point, what you are getting here, DAO returns to the service, persistent entity. But after the transactional method is over, the transaction is over, session is closed, persistent entity, persistent cache is gone. So this is definitely detached. Okay, so going forward, I'll take the invalid branch first. So can you tell me, if the credentials were wrong, which is the exception DAO layer will throw? Everyone knows it in the middle of night. Which is the exception? No result. So this try block will be aborted. You come into this. No result exception extends from, it is unchecked exception. So guys, yesterday some of you are making mistake. So please highlight. Every time it may not be a no result. It could be your programming bug. So identify the exception. And in case of this, we don't want to take the user further in the system. User has simply not logged in. So take him back. We want to take him back to the login page, but with a error message. So answer this quickly. What will be the scope of this attribute? PRSA, page request session or application. 100% request. And why I'm happy or why request scope is sufficient? Tell me. What is it I'm returning? Redirect view name or a forward view name? F or R? Forward view name. Forward view means what? Server pull or client pull? SP. So we are forwarding the client to the view layer in the same request or in the next request? In the same request. So is request scope sufficient? 100% yes. So this was the explanation of forward view invalid branch. Okay. Now we had done step by step everything with you in yesterday's lab. So in case of successful login, initially we were saying, you remember we were also using the forward view. We were calling the method right here, which was so messy all together. User validation also and getting topic list also. It is a mixing up of concern. And we were, earlier we had not written this redirect keyword. So if you write only /customer/topics, tell me, answer me. Forward view or redirect view? Quickly. If I drop this redirect keyword, forward view takes the client to the topics page in the same request or in the next request? Same request. And if the user refreshes means sends multiple requests, what was the disadvantage? What was the problem observed? Multiple submissions. And like I said, it was a select query. So no big loss, but imagine it was an insert query. Imagine I showed you that picture, order insertion and all that. So of course it is harmful. So what is the solution to get rid of, or how do you add this double submit guard? PRG, post redirect get pattern. So which was a bottleneck? I'm not bottleneck. What was the root cause? Root cause was a server pull forward view. So how do you tell Spring Container, as in dispatcher servlet, don't use the forward view, don't treat this as a logical view name and give it to the view resolver. Instead, send the direct response, temporary redirect response to the client in one word. So how do you tell all of this to the container? One catchphrase, I mean one keyword, redirect : and /. So now I have already written the description. You can keep it. I would just like to explain it and go on to porting everything to Spring Boot. By the way, guys, is your progress bar over? Is your Spring Boot dependencies downloaded? Okay, some of you are saying yes. Those who could not, I'm telling you, you have a 10 o'clock, I mean around 10ish, 10 kind of break. So at that time you do the downloading. Okay, anyway, I'm not finished with the revision. So don't worry, you still have 5 more minutes or whatever. Okay, so let me open this thing here. Now, so what happens is here, our user controller is sending here a redirect view name. Okay, so if you want to make a change, I'll just choose a different color maybe. So who is sending what to whom? Your user controller is sending. See the different type of responses we are sending. Earlier, we were sending simply a logical view name, model and view. Logical view name, but internally added with model map. And here I'm saying we are sending here redirect : something. What was it? Customer/topics. Okay. So in this case, this comes to the front controller. So start answering fast so we can actually do things today. So tell me, will this front controller send it to the view resolver bean or will it skip the view resolver? The moment it sees the keyword redirect, skips the view resolver and it will immediately send the redirect response. So tell me, what will be the status code of that redirect response? Fast. We've been saying all our Java in J2E life 302. Which will be the headers which will be set here? You know all of that. You can inspect and this location, Set cookie, like I said, you may or may not get it, because for the first JSP itself, when it adds, it will start with session tracking, 100% location. Set cookie optionally. Now, this location will have which value? /customer/topics, or simply customer/topics. It goes to the client browser. What will client browser do? Will it just sit there, or will it generate a new request? It will, of course, generate a new request. And what will be the URL of this? Sorry, not URL, URL pattern of this request? Ending in /customer/topics. What will be the method, default method it will use? Get or post? It is a browser generated request. So of course, get. That is why we call it as PRG. Client had submitted the form via post, and we redirected the client, redirected the user. The response was sent, and now client browser is sending it via get. Post, redirect, get. Okay, so now the new request is coming /customer/topics. You got me? Now the control comes here. Again, can it be intercepted by front controller? 100% yes. Sends to handler mapping and gets a null or not null. Tell me, you got it as null or not null? Of course, not null. So which is the controller you are going to open now? Of course, now we have entered the customer space. Customer centric actions. So we had nicely separated it in a customer controller. So check the mapping. /customer/topics and with a get mapping. So tell me, which is the method your dispatcher servlet call? Of course, /customer/topics. And here, now I'll not go all the way because looking at time, I spent more than an hour in just revising. So the point is, again, the same flow. So now this customer controller, I want to inject the topic list as a topic service. So again, controller calling service, service calling a DAO, and hitting the database, getting the list. And as usual, complete reduction of boilerplate code. So now, what is the scope of this particular attribute, PRSA? Page request session or application. Of course, a request scope. And what are we using? A logical view name, as in forward view name, or is it a redirect view name? Logical view name gets translated to actual view name with the view resolver, and which is the next page, the last page we are opening is topics.jsp. So here we had web app, web INF, views, open customer, topics.jsp. And recall. This is our starting point. So you of course must have seen login successful, but did you get this name or no name? Got the name or no name? Blank name. And did you get, I am just getting the inputs from you because some things you have to do on your own. And did you get to see this topic list or no list? Topic list was present. So anyone wants to tell me quickly why? Okay, anytime you see a blank, you know EL syntax has come across null. Anyone wants to tell me the problem? Buffer discard is not a problem. Not a problem really. New request. Okay, new request. The correct thread is new request. So tell me, client pool new request. Agreed. So what? I'll say so what? Fine. Justify. Tell me. You are right. You are absolutely right. So yes, absolutely. Yogesh has said it so well. Guys, where have you written? Where have you stored this user details? Under which scope? Under the model attribute. Okay. And the moment you say request scope is over, model attribute is gone. So tell me, if you want to remember this validated user details from login to logout, which is the correct scope? Which is the scope which we should use? Everyone knows the answer. Session scope. Got me? So if we were sitting in a servlet like old school technology, old school, but no way obsolete. The whole build-up is on servlet. Okay, so if we were in a servlet, how do you get the session? The servlet programmer has to request, servlet has to request the web container, request.get session, and you get it. But that is so conventional programming. So now listen to this, guys. Process login form method is dependent on HTTP session for storing the user details. Who is dependent upon whom for what? This method, this request handling method is dependent on HTTP session for storing the user details. Understood my statement? Okay. So should you do the request.getSession business, or should you simply order the container to get you the session object? In short, IOC or conventional programming? IOC. And things get, I don't think things getting easier. You just add one more dependency here. And what will be the type? Continue, guys. I'm continuing. Before I take you to boot, let me just finish this. Let me show you that username. And next thing we are going to do is port this CMS to Spring Boot and continue all over. I mean, continue throughout in Spring Boot. So things get, like I said, I can't think of any solution easier than this. Whole concept revolves around dependency injection, inversion of control. Okay, so we wanted HTTP session. So in the request handling method, there is a long list of dependencies which you can ask. So one of the dependencies is HTTP session. Understood what I said? So instead of programmer getting the session from the HTTP servlet request or whatever, you're just telling the container, get me the session object. Understood completely? Something, yes or no? Okay. So I have a little tricky question. So think and answer. So at this point, when I come to this process login form, is your container. See, Spring Container says, session tracking is not my job. Who is the in charge of session tracking? Creating request object, response object, session tracking, what is it called? Concurrency handling. Who is in charge? Spring Container. Come on, guys. Web container. How can you forget your web container so fast, so early? So guys, it is the layers. The lowermost layer is the web container, and on that top we have added a Spring Container. So Spring Container says, I don't know about session tracking. This is a conversation between a Spring Container and a web container. So web container will give the session object to Spring Container, and Spring Container will simply supply it in your method. So now my real question is, what do you expect to see? Will it be a brand new session just now created, or will it be an existing session? Two options, new or existing. If you say either way, I'm going to ask you deeper questions. Okay, so suppose you are right, existing. So can anyone tell me, when was the session? By the way, you are right. You just have to tell me, you just have to convince me that it's not a fluke or by chance. When the session object was actually created in our application. If you say existing, that must have been created sometime. Anyone wants to tell me when? Impress me by giving a correct answer. Absolutely good. Very well done, Yogesh. Here, do you remember the statement? All JSPs implicitly participate in session tracking. So when the client sends the first request to that, to the root of web application, and when the index.jsp page is delivered, what is going to be created by this thing, what is it called, web container? An empty, the new session object. So by the time you come to the process login form, tell me, a brand new session object or existing one? Are you understanding my question? The existing one. Very well said, guys. I'm so happy when you understand and give answers. Okay, so coming back to the point, now tell me, which line has to be edited? I'll give you options. 51, 71, both or neither. 51 or 71. Only 51. Guys, here you don't require a larger scope, which is the navigation we are using, a server pull. So request scope is sufficient, and whatever you add in model attributes fits into the whatever. So this don't change. So here just do a one-liner. I mean, just change session and the method name is set attribute. Understood it completely, whatever I said? See, the explanation takes longer, you know that, but the actual implementation is so easy. And then, of course, you go to your pages such as topics.jsp, change or no change in the highlighted one. Of course, the answer is change. Where we have added the attribute. Is it in the map by the name request scope? No, the name of the map has to change to either don't supply the map, let container struggle, let web container search it in the page scope, request and session, or as usual, don't supply. Making sense? Understanding things? Okay, so let us run this for the last time without Spring Boot, and next minute onwards, we will enter Spring Boot. Okay, so we can just, and that's why I never made any copy and all that. Watch the console as always, guys. No need to hurry over it unless until you are clear. So customer controller, all these controllers, Hibernate has booted. Currently, we are still using some, not so old, but okay. You will have a different version with Spring Boot anyway. So this, and then you can go to here and just try with the invalid branch. So that is fine. And we are working as a, yeah, this thing, customer. You not yet started developing your admin branch. And tell me, are you remembering the client over multiple requests or have you forgotten it? A redirect attribute is yes, Kanad. You are talking about a flash map. So flash map is a intermediate. This is not the use case. Let me ask you, Kanad. This is something ahead of time, so others can ignore. Because Kanad has done some R&D on his own, so I have to talk to him. If you want to, exactly, if you want to remember the client details only till the next request, then we go for redirect attributes is equal to flash map. I'm going to take that. But here, do you want to, Kanad, do you want to remember the clients only till the topics page or look at our case study or till the logout page? Where's that logout page? Okay, there's a drawn properly. So I want to remember the client till the entire logout. I mean, between so many requests. So you yourself tell me, is the flash map, I mean, flash scope. I've not yet discussed the flash scope, by the way. Is the flash scope is equal to redirect attributes sufficient or insufficient? 100% insufficient. So I went for session scope. Let me have an opportunity and I will definitely show you all the flash scope as in flash map and redirect attributes in good time. Okay, so I have understood that. I mean, you have given me this, that your Spring Boot project is all created. Let's have a look at it. So now stop the server. Spring Boot is going to bring in its own embedded Tomcat container, and you cannot have two Tomcat containers running on the same port. So I'm giving you the instructions, guys. Go to your server. Here itself you can see, for example, and confirm, is the Tomcat server stopped? Tell me yes or no. Stop, because otherwise you'll have problems. Now you can say Control-Shift-W. We are entering formally Spring Boot. I'll give you the whole idea about it. Let us just configure and test it first. Okay, so here I can close this boot dashboard. Require boot dashboard. Okay, so package explorer. Just a second. Yeah, fine. So let me close earlier project. Yeah, so you will see day 17, you should see Spring MVC Hibernate, whatever the name, using Spring Boot and DevTools. Getting this completely? It just got, see, today it took you so much time. Create this multiple times. Now your all dependencies are downloaded in Maven repo, so it will not take you more than half a minute. So guys, get a feel. Is this any different? from what you have been using? Absolutely not. Which is the project management tool we are using? Maven or Gradle? Maven. So you already know SRC main Java, SRC main resources. We have not yet tapped the test cases, something I showed you, but we will of course expand. Java libraries still whatever, JDK 16, 11, and open this Maven dependency, and it has downloaded so many jars. So look for your Hibernate core and tell me, is it the latest, is it a later version than 5.4.18? 100%. It all uses, when you say Spring Boot 2.6, it brings in all the latest dependencies. So you will see all of it. There is a beautiful dependency which we are going to use every now and then, Jackson. That is for JSON, Java to JSON mapping and JSON to Java. So all these in good time we will be using. But you see something which is like amazing. Did we have to copy these dependencies in pom.xml, or did Spring Boot generate it automatically? Automatic or non-automatic? Automatically. And you see, so see this, there is a concept of a starter parent. I'll explain all of that. The Spring Boot version is 2.6.3. Group ID we had chosen, artifact ID. So if you don't like this version, you can change it to version 1. This has nothing to do with the Git version. For pushing it on the Git, you have different commands and all that. So this is just a snapshot version. Packaging we had chosen. All these things we had chosen. And you remember those ticking those checkboxes. So that individual, checking has brought in a one dependency. So you remember we said Spring Data JPA, and it has brought in Spring Boot Starter Data JPA. You don't know still what is Spring Data JPA. Over the day, you will get it. Validation, web dependencies, which is good for your web MVC application today and tomorrow onwards. REST APIs also. Dev tools and the Lombok dependency has been also pulled in. So you can see the plugin, the only one plugin that requires is Spring Boot Maven plugin, all done. Is the pom.xml showing correctly? If you are downloading jars or something has failed, then you will start getting red crosses. Otherwise, it is like a foolproof thing. Works 100%. Okay. So this is it. This is it means this is the, this is what the Spring Boot has brought in. But can you see where my cursor is? So next to, before pom.xml, can you see there's something called as effective pom? So what dependencies you saw under Maven, these are all here. And it has brought in so many additional dependencies which are required for the complete working. So guys, this is just a thing which I showed. For example, database connection pool and so many things. Okay, so it has pulled in all the dependencies. These are all the internals. So you can switch back to pom.xml, which we have actually selected and generated. Okay, so now let me make the next step. I'm shifting to Spring Boot. So I have not yet given you the theoretical background, which I'll give you soon, but I want to finish the steps first. So here, all these, okay, by the way, you don't require any web.xml. You don't require spring-servlet.xml. You don't require your Hibernate persistence XML database properties. The whole configuration, just one application property file. So I'll give you exact instructions. Open day 16 data, Spring Boot, etc. Can you see a property file here? Application.properties. Everyone can see that? Just open that. You can open it with VS Code, anything. And just copy all the entries. I'll explain. Control A. This also can be generated, but takes time. So this I generally give as a ready-made one to the beginner. Now, anyone wants to tell me, where do you want to copy this configuration file? Under which folder? Resources, of course. So here, wait, don't copy. When you create Spring Boot, it is giving you the application properties file, but it doesn't know which properties you want. So it gives you the empty one. So just paste it here. And then I'll start explaining property by property. You tell me whenever you are done. You just have to copy this, some important tags only. Done this. When you enter Spring Boot, it is convention, COC approach, convention over configuration. So Spring Boot says, you want to create a corporate style or industry grade or production ready project, come to me. Spring Boot is not replacing Spring Framework. Spring Boot is just one of the project in the Spring ecosystem. So Spring Framework understanding is the basic one. And on the top of it, we are reducing the configuration to only this, almost to 0. So start understanding and start editing. If you don't supply the server port, what is the default value of a server port? This is your Tomcat. It is going to internally start. It is 8080. So guys, some of you had a problem. So if you are using, if I don't have a problem with 8080. So those who are having, this is, by the way, hash is a comment. Hash is a comment in a property file. So here, uncomment this and give the port number which you are using. For example, 9090. So this is nothing but your Tomcat server port. All clear? If your port is, if your earlier Tomcat was working on 8080, don't change this. So by default it will work on 8080. But if you found the problems on the first day of J2E, server issues and all, you remember we were editing. Which file we were editing that time? Which file in the connector tag? Server.xml. So here no such thing. There's 0 XML other than pom.xml. It is all pure Java configuration. So that was the first one. Now, everyone knows the concept of the context path. So can you tell me, what was the context path of that earlier one? /day16 Spring MVC. So in Spring Boot, the context path default value is empty. But since it's your first day, let us change. So here, can anyone tell me where this context path will appear in the URL? Where will it appear in the URL? Context path will appear somewhere in the URL. Where? It's an easy question. Context path, guys, /day5 /day6, where it is? After, at the beginning of the URI. You understood it? It is what is the starting up of URI. So if you comment this value, if you put a comment here, that value will be blank. Okay, and it will directly start with something like /customer/topics. So initially I'll say add this. If you want to keep the convention same, you can make it as the name of the project also. But just to show you, can I change it? Answer is yes. So since it is a Spring MVC application with boot, I've just given name. Let me say this slowly and clearly. Can this be same as your project name? 100% yes. But can it be separate? Can it be different also? Yes again. And when I come to the REST API tomorrow onwards, we are going to comment this property. But in Spring MVC, generally I add. Understood that? Now, I hope this is no-brainer. We have been doing this so many days. So quickly, edit the username and password, and please don't add extra spaces. White spaces can kill you. Tell me when you are done. You just have to edit a username and a password. That's it. Done. No extra spaces. When I say no extra spaces, if you say delete, it should come to this. And here also, when I say delete, there's no extra space, so come here. Okay. Now, some JPA properties which you already know. So Hibernate properties basically, but it is, you will see. Does Spring Boot directly support native Hibernate APIs? Answer is no. It has got a very deep impact, but that deep impact you will see little later. In short, what it understands, does it understand JPA or does it understand a specific implementer as Hibernate? JPA or Hibernate? You can see from the properties. Hibernate is a wrong answer. When you see Spring.jpa, how can you give me that? So here, Spring Boot does not understand, even though it is going to default use a Hibernate as a JPA implementer, it understands JPA. Do you remember the difference between a JPA and Hibernate? Tell me, what is JPA and what is Hibernate? JPA versus Hibernate. Waiting for your answer. What is JPA and what is Hibernate is the question being asked. Yes. So JPA is the specification. It is the part of J2E specification, and Hibernate is one of the most popular implementer. By the way, I got just one answer, which is crazy disappointing. I've said this 10 times. Okay, people were typing, but still 2 answers is less. 222 people are here. So I want more answers, guys. JPA is the specification, Java Persistence API, and Hibernate and iBaptist and Kodo and JDO and Eclipse Link and all are these vendors. So which is the default vendor Spring Boot supports? It is Hibernate. But will it allow you to access Hibernate native APIs? Answer is no. So all these properties you'll see spring.jp. You can just take a cursor there and you can read. See this. It tells you whether to enable logging of the SQL statements. In simple English, do you want to see on the console when you fire a particular JPQL, what happens? So currently I'm saying true. After your project is debugged, developed, deployed, make it false or simply comment it. I hope I don't have to explain this. This is Hibernate specific. Guys, you have to be smart in realizing. So this is Spring JPA, but I'm configuring a Hibernate specific property. You know this HBM to DDL. You remember Hibernate mapping to DDL, and which was the value we used to give is update. So that has been renamed as Spring. You read instead of me saying this. DDL mode, shortcut for which Hibernate property? HBM to DDL. So I don't think you should have any problem migrating from non-Spring Boot to Spring Boot. This I will show you. You don't require, I mean, we are using MySQL 8, but I've already told you it doesn't require. So I've just given it as sometimes in interviews, people ask you, what is MySQL dialect or what is the database dialect? In case anyone asks, you don't require it, don't uncomment it. Later, I'll show you how do you set the debugging levels and all if a particular module is not working, be it Spring Web, be it Spring Security, be it Hibernate. So all this later. Now, pay special attention to this and tell me. You can understand it so easily. So guys, where were you configuring these properties earlier before Spring Boot? Anyone wants to tell me? Yeah, this is a view resolver bin. I said, where were you configuring these properties? No, in the Spring-Servlet XML, absolutely. So when I say zero configuration, no configuration, all convention, you don't have a Spring-Servlet XML, you don't have a web.xml, etc. Hibernate persistence. So here you can tell Spring Boot framework that I'm using. Are we using Spring REST API, RESTful web service? Not yet. This is your Spring MVC web application. And the view layer, view resolver prefix is, of course, I'm using the same values because we are going to port the earlier project, web-inf views, and the standard suffix is going to be JSP. Are you relating to what we did earlier? And are you seeing how easy it is? Zero configuration. We are ready to write the controller and test it, in a minute. Okay. And this property is a very, what do you say? It's a very interesting property, but currently I'm not explaining. So right now, just keep it. So because it will take another 10 minutes to explain. So right now, let it be open. It is open session in view pattern. So by default, the value is true. So I've just disabled it. More on this when I take you deeper. All the entries otherwise than line number 19 are all clear? Yes or no? It is all the recollection of earlier one. So now, this was one thing. So this is where we configure, just a second. So wait a second. I'm just checking whether we can check this out. Okay. Yeah. So some more little additional steps. Only these steps, whatever I'm giving is only for today. Today as in Spring MVC based web application with a JSP based view layer. So tomorrow onwards, we are going to split it into front end and a back end. And the backend will not have a view layer at all. It will all be having the service, REST controller, service, DAO, and POJO and database, no JSPs. Okay, so the point is, for JSP based view layer, you need to add the 2 additional dependencies. You can see, are we using the external Tomcat container or embedded one? The moment you start using it with the this fellow, embedded. So you remember Jasper.jar? That is a Jasper component I'm installing for JSP based view layer. And do we want to keep using the JSTL tags till we are in the MVC application, web application? Answer is yes. So please copy these 2 dependencies. No longer required in web services. Today it is required. So where are you going to copy these dependencies? This is the only thing you have to do in pom.xml. So tell me, under which tag? Obvious question. Of course, within the dependencies tag. So here, go to the last one. This is bringing in test dependency and paste it. Don't paste it in the wrong position. It will start giving you the red crosses if you spoil the sequence. Save it. And see, it is already building it and bringing it. But when you make a change in Maven project, what is it we do, guys? We force update or Maven update basically. So right click. This is all Maven. So that is why I was preparing you for almost a week. So update project, and you can say force update. You tell me, then you are done. Which are the 2 dependencies I have pulled in, or rather I have copied in? The Tomcat Jasper component, that is your for JSP, and this is for your JSTL. Let me know whenever you are done. Let the dependencies get downloaded. What to paste? Here, this one, Girish had asked you to open long back Spring Boot sequence. So keep following that sequence. Step number 4, add the following dependencies for Spring MVC. So these are the dependencies. Shall I send you, share with you? I'm sending you. This is already there, Girish. Already in that steps guide. Done, guys? Can I continue? Okay. Next one. So now take a look at this thing. What is it called? Your folder structure. There's something which is missing. Okay. So say Control-Shift-W. I hope you have forced updated it. So it is all properly in sync. Done? Shubham, it is just, I'm explaining the next step. Okay, I'll wait. But do it fast. People are managing. Because this is whatever said, a theory session. Okay. Where to paste? Come on. This is a disappointing question. Dependency. Where to paste the dependency? Within the dependencies tag. Where else? So already we have brought in, the Spring Boot project has brought in. So paste it just before the closing of the dependencies tag. You can put it anywhere. Anywhere means, okay, don't quote me wrongly. Anywhere within the dependencies tag. Dependencies plural, dependency singular. So put it inside. Got me, Shubham? I don't think he was asking pom.xml. I think he was asking where exactly. Whatever. You got it? Done. Very good. So now read the next step and we'll go. I'm literally doing it so that even if you don't remember, even if somebody is missing or whatever, he or she can still refer to it and do it. So guys, now refer to the folder structure. You can say Control-Shift-W and open under SRC main. And what is the folder which is missing under web app? Which is your J2E compliant must required folder, mandatory folder. Quickly. Folder name is web.xml. Folder name is web.inf. So I had told you from the first day, when we enter Spring Boot, you will not even require the web.xml. But to make it as a J2E compliant web application, which is the folder you will still require, web-inf. So if you say, well, don't do that, hear me. If you say that, okay, right click, what is that, Java EE tools and generate, it will generate that web.xml, which is totally not required in Spring Boot. So instead, just for today, because tomorrow restful day, I mean whole REST API, so that here you create the folder. I've given the step, follow it. So right click on web app, new, and what are you going to choose here? Somewhere there will be folder. Yes. Found this thing? Create a new folder, just nothing but that. Tell me yes or no so I can continue. Right click on web app, new, and a folder. Why it is taking you so much time? Guys, where are you? Am I not audible or something? Okay, done. Sorry. I did not see your message. My mistake, my bad. So web app, new, this pop-up was on front. So here, folder, and here. Now don't make a spelling mistake, please. It is all case sensitive. It is web underscore INF. It is not web hyphen INF. You've been looking at it all these days. So better not make a spelling mistake. Web hyphen web dash INF, standing for web information. Do you need to generate the web.xml? Absolutely not. In the entire this, you just have got one property file and pom.xml that was also generated. So it is going to be like a zero configuration kinds. And now we are going to write in a minute homepage controller, and we are going to test whether our Spring Boot application is up and running. Okay. So before that, I just want to show you things. Okay, because you have to be clear with the folder structure. So where are we going to write this controller? Under which folder? You have four options: SRC main Java, SRC main resources, or SRC test Java. Yes, please. Everyone knows the answer. SRC main Java, correct? So here, if you expand, it means Spring Boot has already created a project. I'm so sorry, package. You remember why it has created com.app in that first screen, which I have, I think, this thing at. See, in the first screen, new Spring Starter project, we have given the package name as com.app. And why I gave that? Because already we've got written so much yesterday under com.app. So I can port it fast and complete little more. Okay, so coming back. So here, can you see something? So what is it you have? Day 17 Spring MVC Hibernate is the name of the project, application.java. Open that, guys. And what is it you are looking at? Nothing but our good old public static void main. So this is where you start understanding or start realizing Spring Boot magic. So the starting point is going to be a main-based application, which will launch, you will see in a minute, or okay, 5 minutes, that embedded Tomcat container. And on that embedded Tomcat container, the whole web application will be deployed. And where the most, all this I'm going to explain, but I want to get the things done first. And then we'll sit back and understand. And the major, master config, I'm sorry, annotation is Spring Boot application, which is consisting of 3 internal annotations, which gives the which gives the power or extra magic or whatever you call it to Spring Boot application. More on this later. I've written in that README, but we will explain. I'll explain line by line. So right now, let us write the controller and see whether your Spring Boot application is up and running. Okay. So come back here. So now, what we are going to do? Everyone knows that. I hope everyone knows that. SRC main Java, new, and create a, go to other and say class. Do you want to create a controller in com.app? I hope not. So create like yesterday, controller project, I mean controller package, and you can call it as a home controller or home page controller or anything. This part is repetitive. Soon I'm going to tell you what is Spring Boot and what is not Spring Boot. Meaning, with Spring Boot, what are the things you don't have to do? What are the things which happen automatically, and what are the things you still have to do? Everything we will discuss. So I'm giving you a minute. Okay, before I say your minute starts now, here, is there any web.xml which we have configured, which we have created? It's a Boolean question, yes or no? No. So if there is no web.xml, can you really serve a welcome file by the web container? It's a Boolean question again. Can you have a web container serving your index page? Answer is no. So what is it you'll have to do? You will have to serve it via Spring container or web container. SC or WC? Spring container. But if you sit back and you think there is no web.xml, means there is no servlet deployment entry. Which servlet I'm talking about? Dispatcher servlet. No dispatcher servlet means Spring container doesn't start. Handler mapping bean doesn't get created. View resolver is not created. All these are wrong things. The magic of Spring Boot is the moment you pull in web dependency, you remember the checkbox we checked, web, or got that Spring Web. The whole Spring Boot works in intelligent manner, and it will automatically configure what all your dispatcher. It will pull in your OSWS dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will use the default configuration to start the Spring container. The Spring container will look into your whatever controller beans and the DAO. We don't have now. We will be adding. Whole day we are doing that. Controllers, DAOs, and repositories. It will start the bean lifecycle and give you ready to or go to. They call it as go to kind of a thing. Ready to use project. So this configuration, everything. So, okay, let me say this from the figure so that you'll start. See guys, don't expect it to reach 100% immediately. 1 or 2% is more than sufficient. So which building blocks, I'll just zoom out. Which building blocks are automatically configured up and running with the Spring Boot? I'll start asking you. Front controller. Is it created? Yes. Did we have to do that web.xml, the servlet tags, servlet name, servlet mapping, I mean URL mapping or this URL pattern? Nothing. Is the handler mapping been up and running? Very much yes. Is your view resolver been up and running and configured with WebINFuse and suffix JSP? Yes. But for that, we had to write 2 lines. You remember those 2 lines in application property file? So all that. But that is the only thing. Did I have to actually write the bean ID, bean class, and inject those properties? All gone. And of course, okay. So, but the thing is, do you think your Spring Boot, whatever hi-fi it may be, whatever high-end it may be, can it really write the request handling controllers, or that is still your concern? Of course it cannot. How will Spring know? How will Spring Boot or any technology on the earth will know what is your request handling logic? So that you will have to write. Are you getting this? So you should be clear what Spring Boot gives you and what is our role still. So our role is writing homepage controller. So now I'll tell you what I want. I want very basic thing. So whenever we run this, deploy this, don't worry. The Tomcat container will start all fine. Internal embedded Tomcat container. So when I go to the client and when I send the request, what will be the request URL? Just a second. So here, you remember we have given the context path. So which is the URL we will have? HTTP /spring MVC boot. I want to see the message, welcome to Spring Boot. Give me that under, okay, don't say, I'm not saying give me that message. Write the homepage controller for that under a minute. You understood what I want? I want you to deliver the homepage. Start. Your time starts now. In a minute, I'll join you. Give me a home controller, home page controller, which will deliver the index page, which says just a welcome message, welcome to Spring Boot. We've done it yesterday, so I can try it out for you. I mean, you can try this. Don't run it and all, because the running part is a little different. Just write the controller and tell me when you are done. Not just the controller, of course, index.jsp also you have to write. But at least first step is finish the controller. Tell me when you have done the controller. Done the controller, very good. So at least some of you, don't worry. I'm going slow here, because this is what is your headache still, controller. I don't need any request mapping because it's going to have only one entry. So I can skip that. It is going to be a get mapping. You can say add request mapping, get mapping, whatever, slash, and show home page, show landing page. Okay. And here, all I'm saying is, I'm not doing, okay, I'll do this thing, constructor also, I'll write in show. You're still new to all this, so it's okay if you, even if you spend little time in writing the SOPs and the debugging statements and all that. At least you will know whether it is up and running, right? SOP, constructor, or whatever. Get this, right? Here, just one liner, return. So are we going to return a logical view name, as in forward view name, or a redirect view name? What is it you want? Redirect or forward? Of course, forward. And here, it's a logical view name. So you can say slash index. Everyone finished so far with understanding? This we had done yesterday, so I was expecting you to finish. But now see this. You have application properties, and I've given the same values. So sorry. What will be the actual view name? Same as yesterday. Slash webinf slash views. Here it puts in, wraps in between the logical view names. So, okay. So I'll say here, actual view name will be same. Webinf views index.jsp. But is this index page created direct, ready-made, or do we have to create it in Spring Boot? Automatic or programmer created? You have to create it, right? So now you know the folder structure and everything. We spent whole of yesterday in that, right? So go to webinf, new. Is there any JSP you can see? I can't. Anyway, so just say JSP here. So JSP file, next it. And where do you want to create it? A folder views. It gets created. So web app, webinf views. Actually, you know, under web app, it would have created webinf also in this manner, but we just created it separately. And here you supply index page and nothing but a welcome to Spring Boot kinds. Just a message, tester message. Finally. Done this much? You understood where to keep it and all that? Under, I'll just check. I mean, rather you check. So here, see the folder structure. See, SRC main web app. I'm reading my title bar. Webinf views index page. Got it, guys? Okay. So, and if you want to make it dynamic, you can add a model attribute and all. Let's not do that. Unnecessary tabs, I'm closing. I don't require outline. I don't require Spring Explorer. So I'll have enough space. Now, wait. How we used to run earlier projects? Right click, run as, run on server. No longer. This is a Spring Boot app, and the starting point of a Spring Boot app is this Spring application. Okay, so if you remember, I showed you this, which has a main method. So here, this is what we are going to run. And this main method internally will launch embedded Tomcat container and deploy our stuff. So give me a minute. I will show you and then you join. So wait for a second. So I'm right clicking on this. Right clicking on what? Am I right clicking on project, guys? No. Right click on Spring Boot app. That is day 17, whatever, application.java. Here is the option run as Spring Boot app. Okay, I'm going to repeat it. First, let me check whether things are all wired properly. And here, then open the console. And this is your Spring Boot console, typical. It looks very nice with the dark theme, you know. So this is your popular so-called Spring Boot console. And you will see, okay, let me wait for you. So please, I'll stop it and I'll ask you to do it. So what is it you are going to do? Go to the Package Explorer, please. And right click on this. Right click on Spring Boot application. Run as. And what are you going to choose is run as Spring Boot app. And watch the console. Tell me. Working or having exceptions? With Spring Boot, if you follow the instructions, there's hardly anything which can go wrong. But there are a lot of things for you to observe. So check. So I told you, this is your, what is it called? Spring Boot typical logo. Okay. And here, like we have a React logo and all. So it is saying starting this application and all. Currently dev tools. I'll give you the important stuff. Can you read something? It is saying, so are we launching this on an external server or are we using, is Spring Boot running this project, deploying this project on an embedded server? Embedded or external? Simple question, simple answer. It is an embedded server. I never started any server. You saw that. I never said run on server. From this point onwards, don't do it literally, but you can actually delete that server because all these projects now we are going to put it on Spring Boot. I mean, not J's earlier ones, but the Spring related. So it is starting the Tomcat service, etc. Now, I'll just tell you the highlights. So here, when you see this, all this, what is it? What does it tell you? Is our database configuration all right or problems? Of course, when you see this, Hibernate is up and running. 100% database settings properties are all fine. But are we using that earlier version jar 5.4.18? No. It is using the latest stable Hibernate jar. And read these statements. Okay. So are we using the fixed connectivity or connection pool? Fixed or CP? CP for connection pool. Okay. So which was the connection pool vendor in the native Hibernate days? Native Hibernate means no Spring, only Hibernate. Hibernate itself was providing the connection pool. You remember the property. But was it industry grade? Was it production grade? Or was it only classroom grade? Or I mean dev grade? Only the development grade. Yesterday, when we integrated Spring MVC Hibernate, but without boot, who was the vendor of a connection pool? Apache. You remember that first bean I had to configure. So much I had to configure. But now with Spring Boot says, okay, you have selected, what was that? SQL, that is Spring Data JPA. It brings in the JPA provider and it brings in a lightning fast. That is how they describe it. A pool. So who is the connection pool vendor? You know, there's a famous name in the industry, Hikari. So here it is starting a Hikari pool. In short, we are not using any other vendor, external vendor. It is supplied by Hikari. Hikari is the name of the data source vendor. And which is the dialect it is using is, you know, we are using MySQL 8. And you can see initialize all that. And you can see, okay, there's a live reload. You remember we added the dev tools. So live reload server is also running. And the Tomcat, okay, see the interesting things. The Tomcat has deployed that application, I mean Spring Boot, In which context path? Using which context path? The one which I supplied, or rather we supplied in that application property file. So if you comment that line, what will be the value of the context path? Empty. So how will you access your web application? HTTP, host colon port, and directly API. So that is what I'll show you from REST APIs. But today being the initial day, we will have the context path. And here you will see that your whole web application is deployed and running in whatever seconds. Matched your console, similar things you are seeing in the console. But guys, what it does not open automatically is the client browser. Because see, I'll tell you a real story. Listen to this, don't misinterpret my statement. Spring Boot was added in the market. This thing, was it for developing Spring Web applications, or was it brought into the market to develop a backend, that is REST API solutions? Answer is it is for REST API solutions. Okay, for web services, exactly. But does that mean that it doesn't offer us a support for Spring Web MVC, web app? Of course not. So I'm just telling you, I'm just justifying that is why it doesn't launch the browser. Okay, so all you have to do is go to the client side and access the application. So I would suggest, to help you with spelling mistakes, no spelling mistakes, just copy this context path and move on to the client browser. Are you understanding all the statements I'm making? You can open this, and it is still running on localhost 9090, and pass this. And tell me, are you getting the welcome message from internally deployed Spring Boot app? Working fine? Waiting for your answer. So that tells you that all your database configuration is fine because Hibernate is up and running. All your controller stuff is working, your index page and all, the whole MVC flow. So I don't know whether you appreciated what just happened. Without configuring, white label error page means you have missed out on something. White label error page is the Spring Boot given error page. Shubham, I've given all the steps in writing. So please check all the mappings. I've given all, see, open this. Open my Spring Boot sequence one. Everything I've given in writing. Plus, I'll make a zip in a minute and share it with you guys. And it is just a Maven project. So like ordinary Maven project, import it as a existing Maven project. Just a second, Shubham. I'll give you this. You match. You check. White label error page is equal to Spring Boot generated error page. So somewhere you are, matching that views or web views, something is you gone wrong. Anyway, so let me just day 617 Spring MVC Hibernate. Let me add to this and share in case anyone requires it. Okay, I've sent you. If you have a mistake, correct it out. So this is your, the first experience of Spring Boot. It took us a lot of time because I was explaining step by step. Okay, but the point is, once you get here, it just takes you 1 minute. And tomorrow onwards, I hope tomorrow onwards, we are not going to require all these additional dependencies. So it will be even faster. Okay, so now let us get it into proper manner. So unless until you have a concept, how can I take you ahead? I can't. So here, start reading. This much I'll explain. This is both things. Your interview help guide, as in typical questions asked. When you say you have used the Spring Boot in your project, there are going to be tons of queries. And also the step guide, what all. That step guide I explained first. So let me not disturb you. Okay. So when anyone asks you what is Spring Boot, standard question, standard answer. It is a additional framework. Is it going to replace when you use Spring Boot? Is it going to internally use the Spring MVC framework, Spring ORM framework, Spring Core Container, something called as AOP? All answers yes. So let me ask you a question. Is Spring Boot replacing the Spring framework or is it an add-on? Tell me. Replacement or add-on? It is an add-on. Are you understanding? Otherwise, I wouldn't have taught you Spring framework at all. It is a overall. See, we have a what is it called? Web container. Web container manages its stuff, which is what? Creating request object, response object, managing concurrency, session tracking, etc. But that wasn't sufficient. We wanted extra support. So we learned Spring framework Spring as a container as a framework. And now we are adding another framework on the top of it, as you said, right? Add-on. So why? Because if I'm a enterprise application developer, I don't want to spend extra time in configuration. So just give me a second. I'll see whether I have a diagram. I had given some diagram somewhere. Wait a second. So I was looking for that huge, not huge, but okay, whatever the diagram. Anyway, I'm not finding it. So I'll just show you the earlier diagram. I'll dig it up. Not here. My mistake. There is that, you remember? Somewhere. Okay. So listen to this. I have to give you the impact, or I have to make you ready for answers. Why Spring Boot? So when you use Spring Boot, which of the following will be done automatically by the Spring Boot? So let me start asking you questions. Do you have to populate the pom.xml? Working hard to resolve the dependencies? Yes or no? It is Boolean question. 100% no. You saw that pom.x. I don't know. I've not looked at your answer. Answer was no. Okay. Because otherwise you could be saying something and I could not be looking at it. Okay. So the point is it got generated. Everyone understands it? Now, do we have to add some these things? What is it called? Servlet deployment tags for dispatcher servlet and configure it in a web.xml. All the answers are going to, okay, not all, be awake, be there. So no. So how does Spring Boot does it? It has something called as opinionated. It is called as a strongly opinionated framework. What is that in a minute? So answer is no. Did we have to configure spring-servlet.xml to launch the Spring container? Answer is no. You remember there is a context colon annotation config and whatever. What was that? Base packages, view resolver 0. Did we have to configure the database property file? Answer is yes, partially. Because you remember that application property file has this DB URL, username, password. So I would say this stays. But the major one was Hibernate persistence XML, where I had to configure the connection pool, inject the connection pool in the local session factory bean, and configure the transaction manager with annotations. Answer is no. So guys, this whole step, this whole block of configuration reduced to 0. Understood what I'm saying? What is Spring Boot? Convention over configuration. All of it reduced to 0. But will you still have to develop, will you still be developing this ladder? Yes or no? Will you still have to write a controller, service, DAO, and a POJO? 100% yes. Again, to tell you something, we are stopping here in 5-10 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes, let's say. But before I say this, the DAO layer, has it already thinned down? Is the bulk of the boilerplate code reduced? Answer is yes. Which part is reduced? Transaction management. So what if I tell you, I have to give you something which will make you, waiting for what next types. So what if I tell you, your entire DAO layer, I'm saying DAO layer, I'm not saying service, is going to reduce to zero. When I take you to Spring Data JPA, which is the ultimate step in your database training, we started from JDBC, native Hibernate. After the break, I'll take you to something called as only JPA, and the ultimate step is Spring Data JPA. So what you are going to see is no DAO implementation class. And all you have to write is DAO interfaces, something called as repositories. So there is further reduction in the code. When we started versus where we will be at the last day or something, you'll see total reduction of code and only the business logic. So the point is, these layers you still have to develop. Even after entering Spring Boot, do you expect to see any changes in the Hibernate managed Pojo layer? Zero changes. Okay, so only tremendous ease you are going to get it further in DAO layer, but otherwise service and controller you still have to manage. There are further shortcuts, but too much out of content. I mean your content, so I can't take that. So the point is coming back to my README is ease of bootstrapping. Starting a Spring Boot application, starting a Spring MVC Hibernate took us so much time versus today. Of course, it took me time because I was explaining each and every point, but it takes you under a minute, especially when your Maven dependencies are downloaded. Okay, so now read the second line. It gives you lot of defaults for code, which you'll see in DAO layer, and annotation-based configuration to quick start to develop the projects literally within no time. And it follows something called as opinionated based approach. Means what? So means what is somewhere here. Okay. So opinionated default configuration. I'm trying to explain because it's a little hard language, but this is the formal language we have to use in interviews. So read this slowly. Understood what I have written? Just yesterday, we were building our own without Spring Boot, Spring MVC Hibernate. So we had to configure a data source connection pool, inject it into session factory, add it into transaction manager, among other lot of things. So you just have to refer to our Hibernate persistence XML and you'll recall. Spring Boot says, can we do it differently out of box? So all these are, this is how, I feel will make you understand and get you interested. It says, can we means not programmer, can a Spring Boot team automatically configure the connection pool, session factory, and transaction manager the moment it finds Hibernate some JPA implementer jars on the class path? So the moment you say, you tick mark that, you checkbox that. Which checkbox? SQL. And under SQL, we selected Spring Data JPA. So that was a sufficient hint for Spring Boot framework to pull in all the Hibernate jars. And once the Hibernate jars were pulled in, it automatically configured the connection pool, the session factory, and transaction manager. Another example, read this. Okay, by the way, later, read this first. This is Spring Boot talking to you. Spring Boot framework talking to you. The moment we check that this thing, what is that? Web. You remember we checked that's web. So in web, when you say, it brings in MVC support inherently. So the moment you have the Spring MVC jars added, it says, why trouble programmer to configure important building blocks of MVC. And what are they? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapping, and a view resolver. So tell me, did we have to configure it or was it automatically configured? Auto-configured or specific configuration? Auto-configuration. So these are the intelligent defaults, or this is called as an opinion. You know the word opinion. So opinionated framework means English training, not a Java training. A framework which has got a lot of its own opinions. Opinionated person, a person who's having a strong opinions, maybe on patriotism or whatever. I mean, I don't want to get there, politics or whatever. So opinionated framework means the framework which has its own views, its own opinions. So the moment you see, the moment Spring Boot sees that these are the dependencies, Spring Web, Lombok, or whatever, it pulls in all the configuration. But is it like a dictatorship? I'm using peculiar words to convey my feelings, to convey my point. Is it like a dictator that is Spring Boot framework tells you that you have to work in this particular manner, or can you override? Are you free to override the defaults? Answer is anytime. Understanding or not understanding my English? Maybe my English is a little heavyweight. So 100% Spring Boot says, welcome to your own configuration, but that time you have to add a lot of, again, like configuration settings. Okay. So all our work, whatever remaining days, we will be using intelligent defaults. Okay. So there are a lot of things, how it works and all that. Over time, I'll be developing, or I'll be telling you, I'll show you a demo and I'll tell you this is what I meant. So before we disperse, I know it is a break time. Let us do something and prepare you for the next phase. So first thing is stop the Spring Boot application. Can you see this red square here? This is for stopping the Spring Boot application. And once you stop the Spring Boot application, is it cleaning up the database resources or is it leaving it all open? Answer is right in front of you. Is it cleaning up this? Of course. So that Hikari pool, that Hikari is the vendor name to provide your database connection pool, is all closed. Okay. So now let us create, I know it is late, but I'm just thinking what will be the easiest. Okay. Let us add a existing DAO layer and simply inject it in the controller. And let us see whether your native Hibernate APIs. So when I say native Hibernate APIs, which of the following option is correct? org.hibernate package or javax.persistence package, or both or neither? When I say native Hibernate APIs, what do you understand? org.hibernate or JPA, javax.persistence? It is org.hibernate. So let us see whether your Spring Boot, does it support directly native Hibernate APIs? I don't want to give you the answer. I want to instead code quickly. Okay. You can copy from the DAO layer, earlier DAO layer, but it is best to, write it on your own. So later, after the break, we are going to do it in a proper manner, the whole CMS, but I want to show you the problem first. Okay. So do it with me. Or if you find that, okay, I'm doing it too fast, you can sit back and understand. So I'm building in, we are building in a lot of packages. We are adding a lot of packages. So right click, new package. So COM app controller is there. Let us bring in COM app service. I'm keeping the packages already. We may or may not use it immediately. And which is the additional other package we'll require? COM app DAO. And the other one where we will store the POJOs is COM app POJOs. Okay. And only part which I'm copying is the POJO. POJO is too much to write all over. And basically, we are not changing things in the POJO as far as your CMS is concerned. So let me copy all of that. I'm going to require only topic currently to show you something. But anyway, we'll require for the completion. So copied everything else. So here, paste it in this. So copied the POJOs. Anyone who is trying along with me, just copy the POJOs under COM app POJO. And you tell me whenever you're done. it's a fast this because already we are late in stopping. Now here DAO I'm writing here currently. I'm skipping the service layer. So here I would say looking at time, I was not going to do that, but let me do that. Topic DAO implementation also. Copy the easiest one I'm choosing, listing all the topics. Okay. So where are we? Copy it under. Just day 17 I'm looking for. Comma DAO, paste it. So you have iTopic DAO, easiest functionality I'm showing you. Forget authentication, forget login. And here, topic DAO IMPL. Tell me, copied the DAO layer as far as only topic DAO and topic DAO implementation is concerned. Okay. Now, since I don't want to delete, already I have deleted it a lot. Go to homepage controller, and if I see, I don't want to add any business logic yet. So can I skip the service layer if there is no extensive business logic? Yes. In the other words, can my controller directly call the DAO layer method? 100% yes. So the next question is, what will be the dependency of the controller in case you skip the service layer? What will be the dependency? Okay, what will be the dependency? I think you are ready with the answer. Let me see your answer. Of course, DAO layer. Interface or implementation class? Interface. IOC or conventional? Auto wiring. I mean, IOC achieved via dependency injection, which is auto wired, and private I topic DAO. Okay, so we added it. So before I call the method, pay attention. Is our service layer existing or not existing, present or absent? It is absent. So which was the annotation? Which were the annotations we used to add over the service layer class? Tell me the names of the annotations. Give me the annotations. Yes, add service and add transactional. So I told you long back. No, long back is wrong. Sorry, yesterday. I told you if you skip the service layer, which is the annotation you will still require to automatically manage the transactions? @ transactional. And where will it go? On the controller layer or on the DAO layer? Obvious question, obvious answer. On the DAO layer. Controller. Oh, no, no. No, 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 no. You did not hear me. Controller, you don't want the transactions and all that. You want to finish it either in the DAO layer or at the most in the service layer. So guys, please open this. This is only in between. Later we will come back to our full-fledged ladder, and please add @ transactional. Typically, @ transactional annotation appears in the service layer. But if you're skipping the service layer, you put it in the transactional. Add it in the DAO layer. So a quick question. Listen to the question and try to answer. What is this DAO layer returning to the controller? Your choices are list of transient entities. There's a list. List of transient entities, persistent, detached, or removed. Let's see. Very good answer. Why? Because now this is where your transactional method is, transactional annotation is. So anyone wants to tell me, when the method returns, what will happen? Hibernate I'm saying because it's a JP implementer, will perform the automatic dirty checking and ultimately close the session. And when the session is closed, L1 cache is gone. Are you understanding? Are you remembering all these statements? And all those entities which were part of that persistent context are decoupled. So you answered very rightly. It is returning the list of detached entities. Okay. So I get it here. I mean, I will get it here. So, but for that, who has to call whose method? Controller has to call the DAO's method. This is a shortcut. Later we will go full-fledged way. Invoke DAO's method. But now I want to make those results appear in this page. Okay. So tell me how to communicate, how to convey the business logic results with the view layer. You know the answer, model map, right? Somebody asked me a question earlier, or was it an answer given? Yeah, Prashant, you're right. So earlier answer is right. So of course the view layer. Why you are saying model attribute? Which is the navigation I'm using forward. I'm not using any redirect and all. So quickly do that. Let's add the dependency here. Now you know about it. Model. Choose it from OS UI and anything. You can print the map and all that, but now you know this. So simply say map dot add attribute, only one attribute, topic list. And here you can say call the DAO layer method DAO dot, topic DAO dot get all topics, and that's it. Done the change. We had done this, so I'm going a little fast over it. Only thing is I want to show you things in Spring Boot. Let me know when you add it. So it won't get automatically displayed. So how do you display it? From this, under which scope it will be storing the model attributes? Request scope. So like yesterday, all topics, all available. This we will put it nicely in the form and all that. That's not a big deal. It's just we're getting the data and or not. That is important thing. And then you will say here request scope dot topic list, I guess. Yeah. Exactly what we had stopped at yesterday. Only thing is it was without boot. Now it is with boot. So no white spaces, please. Save all. Done. Done the change. Request scope dot topic list. Okay. So now you can right click, run as Spring Boot. But do you have a shortcut? Can you see this button, run button? So put on a drop down list, and it will already, we had launched this earlier. So either do from here or go to that Spring Boot application, right click, run as, your choice. And as usual, open the console and check. Is it started the life cycle of your homepage controller as a controller bean? And is your server up and running, deployed on this Spring MVC boot? Okay. But has it sent any request yet to our Spring Boot based web application? Yes or no? Has it started? Has it started this any request? No. So go here and send the request by simply refreshing. And this is where we stop. So everyone is going to get white label error page because I have to show you the problem and fix it. And it is saying so many things. No current session context configuration, blah, blah, etc. And you will see the same story, debugging exception and all that. And you will see org hibernate exception, no current session context, this thing. And then we will see, or then we will, after the break, you will see that Spring Boot does not directly support native Hibernate APIs. So we will have to climb next ladder. Next step in the ladder. So from Hibernate, we are going to go to JPA. And then ultimately we'll climb in another 1 or 2 hours. I'll take you to the ultimate step in form of Spring Data JPA. So let us stop here. Everyone has got the same error, white label error, telling you the exception, no current session context configured. It's Spring Boot's way of telling, I don't understand directly Hibernate. Talk to me in JPA, which is what we will do after the break. So that will be all, guys. See you at 11:25 in 1 hour.